You're listening to On the Road, a law enforcement journey. Hear from those currently on the force while getting an insider view from what it takes to become a law enforcement officer.
Welcome to episode number 15 of On the Road, a law enforcement journey. I'm your host, Jeremy Tormlaw, and today we are going to be talking about week 14 of the Police Academy. We are down to our last 2 weeks, and I remember many weeks ago going, still got 6 to 8 weeks, nothing to worry about, and now it's 2 weeks left. We got many of our final exams coming up, and of course the big MCOLS, so Michigan Commission on Law Enforcement Standards licensing exam, which is the same day as our graduation. So hopefully everybody passes. That's me, the big stressor of taking that licensing exam, and you pass it, you have graduation, or if you fail it and you still graduate, going, oh shit, well, I got to retake it again and hopefully pass. Because if you guys don't know, you have 2 attempts. If you don't pass either one, then you have to go through an entire law enforcement academy all over again, which is fair enough, because at this point you should know your shit, like, or at least have an idea of it. Because some of the stuff is not simply just black and white when it comes to crimes, and like especially the traffic law and stuff like that. There's many ways things can be interpreted, but you should at least have an understanding for the major things. What is and what isn't. So this week we're talking about the week 14 recap in our practical segment. I was going to do something different, but I've done so many job interviews, and that sounds bad, but I'll get to this more when I talk about it. My previous career, it was always stepping stones, trying to move up to the next best big thing. So I got a lot of advice on that, especially from what I got from my mentors and just from my own personal experience. And an interview is something people don't think about, especially when you're younger, and it is a surefire way that you can potentially shit can yourself unintentionally. We'll talk about that once we get there. Our fitness segment, I talked about this a little bit in earlier episodes. It's not specifically, I guess, speed training with weight room. It's how to get faster, because that's a common question I hear from people, is how to get faster, especially athletes. And it really is a pretty simple answer. So let's just jump right into this. This week is, there's not a whole lot onto it. Three of our days was firearms training, so I might fly through this a little bit quicker. Next week and then a week after, it's going to be all scenario based training all week. So we got active shooter training coming up and domestic violence scenarios. So next week and then our graduation week, I'm probably going to have a little bit more thorough on the weekly recaps. So Monday, this is the week of April 18th. We had firearms training all day. Initially, we were going to go to the range for all 3 of these days this week, but it was raining and snowing, so it was very crappy outside. So we ended up staying at the facility, and we just did room clearing all day. So retouching up on just the basic stuff, moving as a 2-man group, a 3-man group, and a 4-man group on how to do like front security, rear security, and then be responsible for clearing a room and calling people out and that type of stuff. So stuff we've already done, but it was nice to retouch up on and learn some new things, especially when we go to a 4-man team, because that was something we did differently. Yeah, that was it took all day. It was a long day, very long day, 8 hours. Then we did criminal law. So this was our second to last day, and we just did, we studying for the final exam. And that was it. Pretty easy Monday, but it was a long day. Tuesday, firearms. We were outside at the range. It was a fun day. We did pistol shooting, so using a Glocks. We did some qualification stuff. I mean, we've already qualified, but it was just going through it again, just to refamiliarize, and just pretty much just for shits and giggles. So just be able to shoot more rounds and stay proficient. I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. We did some marksman shooting on the second half of the day. So we did this for 8 hours, so the entire day again. Was a lot of fun. We had set up, I don't know what distance we were at, but we had these, like, I don't know if they were metal. They were at least targets to shoot at. They were the ones where if you hit them, they fall down. It's always nice to get that immediate feedback instead of going walk down and look at a sheet of paper. There was a total of 12 targets, and then we did a 17 round magazine. So it was fun just to see who will have the most ammo left over at the end and stuff like that. And looking back, I've said this before, I was a terrible shooter with a pistol in the Army. If I were to look at the Army and look at the future and go, here's you, after 13 weeks in a police academy and you hit 12 targets in a row easily. And, because some of the harder targets were shaped like bowling pins. So it really took focusing on the same thing every time: your sight picture, breathing, and your trigger squeeze. And it even blew my mind. I go, holy crap, I hit all in a row. Like, holy shit. I never thought I'd be able to do that. And big shout out to our instructor of the course, because it took the time to properly teach us all. And, he promised at the beginning of the year, our first class, that we're all going to be better shooters than when we first got in there. And that was very true. It made shooting a lot more fun for me. And all I'll say on this is, if you have a hard time especially shooting a sidearm or a pistol, make sure you are pulling the pistol up to your eyes and not ducking your head, because that was one of the big problems I did with the military. I talked about this in previous episodes, but bring it up to your eyes. Don't pull your head down. Your sight picture should look the same every time. Slow breathe out. When your breathing finishes, you're slowly pulling the trigger down as you're breathing, but it should fire once you reach the end of your breath, and then you inhale and you repeat the cycle. Same thing over and over and over again, and it really does make a difference. And when you go to your combat shooting or your scenario training, it's the same concept. I'm not just target pops out, boom, boom, pull the trigger. It's got to be a steady pressure on the trigger. Otherwise, you're going to throw rounds in left and right or up and down. Now, it's different if it's like within 6 feet of you. I mean, you're still going to hit a target without even looking at the sights. So that's what I mean by that. And then on Tuesday, we did our criminal law final exam, and it was a mixture of true and false, multiple choice, and short answer. And the true and false, we all walked out of there going, holy shit, like, think failed. That was my mindset. I thought I failed the freaking exam, because the true and false, it's this, a simple word or two changes the entire question. And that's what our instructor was doing to prepare us for the MCOLS exam. We all thought we did horrible on it, but everybody passed. I think we had an average of, I could be wrong, I think it was in the high to mid 80s was the class average. So everybody passed. That's the important part. Short answer was fun. It was just scenarios. What could you charge these people with and why? And just what is reasonable cause and reasonable suspicion, that type of stuff. So just being able to put it down on paper and show that you actually know what it is. Wednesday, we did vehicle and driver licensing for the traffic law portion for 2 hours, because that's one of our next big exams we got coming up this coming week, is our traffic law final exam. And that one's going to be hard. Our initial one was also hard. Again, everybody passed it, but you have to, I don't know, it's the traffic law stuff. There's so much stuff where there's how you interpret things, because there's many different subsections, A, B, C, D. If this happens, well, and then if this situation happens, the law applies this way. So having a basic understanding of that stuff. And I mean, if you haven't seen any type of traffic law books, they are massive and huge. There are just laws about everything and anything. But this would be primarily around the basic things, obviously what we should be expected to know as police officers getting out of the academy. So I just have to brush up on that. I'm not too worried about it. But I'm not going to say I'm not worried about where I don't prepare myself. And we're going to talk about that in our practical segment too. Preparing makes a big difference. Wednesday, we also did 4 hours of traffic felony stops. So doing it with one person and then 2 cars, one person per each car, and then 2 people cars. So having 4 people on scene. And then we did it with just one driver in the suspect vehicle, and then having a car full of suspects, and then not being able to see how many suspects there are, and how to properly walk up to it and clear it, and how to handle each suspect. And the one thing I really liked about this was just figuring out what goes well for us as a group, what doesn't go well, because everybody's going to have their way of doing things that works better for them. But as long as everybody who's responding is on the same page, because when you got 4 different people showing up, or you got 2 different cars, maybe from different agencies, and no one knows what the hell is going on, or you don't communicate with each other, it's going to look like a clown show pretty darn quick. So communication, interpersonal skills, and knowing what you're doing. Even if you don't know what you're doing, being confident in it. There's a difference between being, confident and arrogant, but not lying. I don't mean to lie to look confident, but you don't want to be stuttering over yourself and misspeaking and stuff like that, because people will pick that up in a heartbeat, and that will drastically escalate. Well, potentially escalate a situation. Our last 4 hours, very interesting block. I actually like this a lot. Was the nature and prevalence of domestic violence. Our instructor for this is a prosecuting attorney, and prior she spent many years in volunteering in domestic violence shelters. So that was her big thing that she's passionate about. So we got to hear um, pretty much all about domestic violence, like, and all the myths about it, because people say, and I used to think this too, like some people who drink, it makes them abuse other people, but that's a complete myth. Same with drug use, and if you grew up with it in your house, everything's a decision. Some people have just that mentality to misfunction in their brain, so they're, whether they drink or not, they're gonna be an abuser. Now, when they use something, it just makes it easier to use that as an excuse to abuse somebody. So that's what we got to learn about. And the big message for this was, because anybody who is a police officer probably could already vouch for this, and I saw it with the military as well, is it's the same households over and over and over again, same people, but to never lose sight of treating people like people and actually giving a crap about it, not just going, oh, here we go again, and um, so why don't you just leave and stuff like that? Like, actually listen to people. Again, we go back to interpersonal skills to deal with situations. It's going to make situations a lot better. And having empathy and compassion and trying to understand people's side of the things goes a long way, instead of just going, well, if you're not going to do anything about it, stop bitching about it. You could get out of the situation, which is true, but that's not very personable. So I'll get off on that. But it was very, very fun. I enjoyed that. Very informative. Thursday, firearms scenario training. So we did outside at a range again. We had the long rifle and the sidearm, so being able to transition. So our instructor would just call us up one by one, and it was a shoot house. So he had a little course set up of having to go through and clear rooms, and it would be shoot, don't shoot. So there might be a hostage type situation, and we wouldn't know how many rounds are in our magazine. So he might give you, you know, uh, a long rifle magazine with only 1 round in it, and a target comes out. So we had actually a moving robot with a firearm attached to it. So you had to shoot a moving target. So he might pop out, and you put 1 round into him, expecting that you're going to have more, and then you have to transition to a sidearm, or you might have a weapons jam, and you have to clear it and reload a different magazine. So that was very beneficial, very fun training. I think all of us enjoyed it. We also got to have a cookout for the second part of the day, so it was just kind of fun to have some pretty intense learnable training in the first half of the day, well, first 3 quarters of the day, and then the last little bit just to cook out some food and just shoot the breeze with each other and pack up. And that was it. Did we do anything else on Thursday? Yeah, we did. Criminal law. So this was our last day of our criminal law class. We went over the exam. Again, everybody passed. That was cool. I got a 92%, so I was really happy. Again, I thought I bombed it horribly, but just goes to show, trust your gut. So my gut for all the true and false was saying, go with this. Reading the question. So if you don't understand something, or not necessarily if you don't understand, but make sure you read the question, maybe a time or two, to make sure you're not missing any of the words and how the words say, to so you make sure you're putting the right answer. And usually whatever your gut tells you is usually the correct answer, so don't change it when you're taking those exams. And then our instructor, who's also a prosecuting attorney, took the time, because we told them that we've never done a search warrant before. Like, we haven't had to write one. So we went through a domestic violence scenario with him, and then went through typing up a search warrant. So doing the affidavit, the search warrant, and all the whole process of it was good to actually get some of that experience and be able to talk it out. And any of the questions, I mean, if we had any whys or not understand anything, we had an immediate answer right in front of us. So that was very beneficial, and it's a great way to end our criminal law course for the academy. Friday, emergency vehicle driving. So this was done at Gingerman Raceway here in Michigan at a racetrack. It was a lot of fun. I'm going to say right now, I'm 35 years old. My need for speed days are gone, and I make sure to tell everybody else, because sometimes my sense of humor, if people can't pick up on it, I like make myself seem more stressed about things, or more bitchy about things than I actually am. It's just my, I don't know, sense of humor. I don't really mean any of that stuff, but I don't like going fast. I don't like roller coasters and stuff like that. So I was a little anxious on this day. Not crazy. I wasn't stressed out about it, but we got to put into practice our understanding apexes and decelerating and accelerating properly through turns. And I'm not a big NASCAR guy, but it really makes you appreciate the science that goes behind racing, because you can lose a lot of time by not hitting an apex at the right time, or going too wide into a turn, stuff like that. Which I found out pretty quickly. So we had 2 Dodge Chargers, and then we had 1 Ford Explorer. The Explorer handled much better than the 2 Dodge Chargers did. And we did our first little block of training to learn how the process goes, and it started raining, which didn't help our cause for trying to go fast with it. But so when we first got in, it was, I think, 6 total laps. So slow, 2 at slow speed, and then 4 at medium speed. So we did our first 2 rounds, nothing more than 35 miles an hour through the entire track, just to familiarize ourselves with the track and where the apexes are, and what the turns look like, and what the straightaways look like. Then we did 4 at a medium pace, so no faster than 55 miles an hour. Then our second time through, it must have been 2 at like a moderate, and then 2 moderate, and then 2 fast speed. So we could pick our own speed to go at. But the straightaways, I think most people are probably topping up at 90. My first few times do it, I didn't go any faster than 70 or 75. I'm just like, nope, because my first time through it, going through our practice runs with the 55 mile an hour, I think I hit 35 on one of the the corners, and the rear end of the Charger kicked out, and I just went sliding sideways. So I'm just like, holy crap. And my instructor next to me is going, you need to go a little bit faster. And I'm just like, faster? I'm doing the speed I'm comfortable with, and I'm skidding all over the road. But my big mistake was, and I never knew this because I'm not exactly a car guy or a motorcycle guy. When you go into your turns, when you're turning, your foot should be off the brake. I have a bad habit, and I've done this my many years of civilian driving, is anytime I'm turning, especially if it's a steep turn, my foot's on the brake as I'm turning. Well, don't do that. You're going to skid. So do all of your braking before you go into a turn. And that made much of a difference, because even when it was raining out, I didn't go into many skids. Some of them it was kind of hard not to, because when you got steep turns, you're going fast pace, and the pavement is very wet. It's very slick in some spots. It's impossible to not go into a skid. But it made a big difference. So if I'm going on a straightway, say I'm just going 75 miles an hour and come up on a sharp turn, slam on the brakes, get to a speed I know that vehicle can handle at that turn. So I'm going to say like 35. So go 75, boom, hit the brakes, drop to 35, foot comes off on the brake, foot's above the gas pedal, and I go into my shuffle steering to get the corner. And as soon as I start coming out of that corner, let the momentum of the car take me to the outside, and I'm re-going back on that gas pedal. It was a lot of fun because they made it very clear, and we got to see it is when you're pursuing anybody. Not saying I'm going to do this because some department policies prohibit vehicle pursuits, and now that we see all the safety issues and stuff with them, understandable why. But when you're pursuing vehicles, most people mess up in the turns, so that's what they stress to us is us as police officers, we win in the corners and the turns and accelerating and decelerating. So that's how we're going to catch them. And then our last thing we did, so we did our evaluation to make sure we were all hitting the apexes, accelerating right, turning right, not the direction right, but doing it properly. And the very last thing we did was one by one had to do a high-speed pursuit after a fleeing suspect, which was a lot of fun. So you had to be on the radio calling out directions where you were going, and of course the instructors would make it it was fun for them. They'd stop, start, stop and start, stop and start, keep going, or completely do 180, go the opposite way. And we were going clockwise around the track the entire time throughout the day. So when we did this scenario, we went counterclockwise, and it really messes with your brain. It is like driving a whole new track completely, because your brain patterns used to just processing it one way the entire time you've been doing it. That's what you've been practicing. Even your nervous system, your neural firing, the way your body processes, or your nervous system, how it processes how you're going to react things. It's used to that. So when you flip it backwards, it has to relearn that all over again. It's interesting, and it was a mind trip. It was a lot of fun. Now our driving's over with, and it's just another thing off the block. So that was our week. It was not really busy, but it was a lot of fun. Especially the shooting. I love shooting. Those days go by so fast. I'll make sure I didn't miss anything else on there. Yeah, again, these 2 weeks coming up are going to be extremely busy, and it's a lot of this scenario training. So it's putting all the material we've been learning into practical use. So speaking on practical, let's get into the practical segment. And I'm going to do this on job interviews because an interview is so important. It's who you know, but making yourself selling yourself, making yourself look like a competent professional human being. You cannot just go in an interview and wing it. And when I was a strength and conditioning coach, I made that mistake so many times, just thinking I'm just going to wing it. I'm used to the military boards and yada, yada, yada. I don't need to practice for it. And then you get in those questions and stumble over them. And at the end of the day, when you're competing against somebody else who's prepared, maybe they don't have the experience that you do that might make you the better candidate, but that person who prepared is going to get the gig. And I had that happen numerous times of get the call from the athletic director or the coach going, well, we appreciate your time. You did well, but we're going to go with somebody else. And it's like, oh, geez, here we go again. But now looking back, I know why. And it was because I did not prepare. So if you're young person, you're going through the academy, you haven't done many job interviews, you need to prepare. You need to practice. I'm telling you, it makes a difference. And those that are giving the interviews will be able to tell if you just dress properly and prepare for your interview, you are going to set yourself up far apart probably from 75% of the other candidates. So you're just setting yourself up for success just in those two aspects alone. Let's see if there's anything going on here. I'm gonna give some examples of the answers I've used and questions I've gone through, and a lot of it's gonna be based on my strength and conditioning career, and I could give a couple that maybe through the police that I've heard. But the best thing I can do is relate it from my strength and conditioning time because I did a lot of interviews and I worked at many different places from the collegiate, the tactical settings, high school settings, that type of stuff. So it's easier for me to use those, but regardless of the career, it's all the same. You pretty much answer some questions, just might have different wording or a different scenario that you have to relate the material to. Big things are to study it, so prepare for an interview in advance, write down potential questions that might be asked, and write your genuine responses to those. Don't just make up crap, because then you're not being true to yourself. When it's an honest, true answer and you write it down, it's much easier to put it in your head so you can practice and rehearse that in your head and make sure it sounds good. So once you got that down, go in front of a mirror and practice that. So making sure your eye contact is good. You're not looking down to the sides, anything, or doing a lot of the ums and ahs. Again, I do that a lot on this podcast, but at my job interviews, I try not to do that because it can be distracting. Because I've even done that when I've interviewed somebody else's. When all you hear is that's typically what you start to focus on and go, holy crap, did this person even prepare for this? But practice in front of a mirror, and if you have a family member, a spouse, significant other, hand them all the questions and let them read them to you and then give your answers. I did that with my wife many a times, and she might hear something and go, it might sound better if you say it this way. And because the way I tend to overthink things sometimes, and she is very good with words, so we get that feedback. You go, huh, yeah, I made something very wordy that didn't need to be wordy. So that can help, or they might have other input that might help you. Being prepared actually shows that you care and you want the position as well. So those are other two selling points. And don't use the cliche standardized answers. The whole, what are your weaknesses? Oh, I take work home. Haha. Everybody does. So don't use those, because if you use those answers, that's not going to help your process at all. Because again, it's given in an unhonest answer, and shows that you did not prepare, because that's what everybody else says. You want to use answers that set yourself apart. So at the end of the day, whether it be 5 candidates, 10 candidates, or even 100 candidates, go, well, this person stood out in my mind. You want to leave a lasting impression, so you get moved on to the next round. So the big questions that hurt people, and it's usually the first question that's ever asked anybody, is, tell me about yourself. And every job interview I've done, whether it be with the college, a high school setting, anything like that, has always been, tell me about yourself. And what do most people not do is prepare for that answer, because, well, yeah, I know about me. I'm just gonna wing it. I graduated at this high school, and then I did this. I worked here, and it sounds unprepared. So here's exactly what I said, because I've said this one so many times over and over and over and over again for my strength and conditioning. Would be, tell me about yourself. And this is when I was actual strength and conditioning coach. Currently, I'm the strength and conditioning coach for the Muskegon Lumberjacks, United States Hockey League. I'm responsible for their physical readiness through training and self-created monitoring software. My interest started in the United States Army, where I served 5 years of active duty with 2 tours to Operation Iraqi Freedom. I fell in love with weightlifting in Baghdad, and it helped my performance. I also suffered the consequences of the training we endured. I wanted to do something to help athletes perform better without ruining their bodies and jeopardizing their athletic careers. I graduated from Northern Michigan University with a bachelor's degree in management of health and fitness. My first role as a strength coach was with the U.S. Army, where I helped train and certify over 300 soldiers to become master fitness trainers so they could go back to help their units prepare for combat operations. I love to learn and grow professionally. As an assistant strength and conditioning coach at Northern Michigan University, I quickly learned how to deal with diverse populations, coaches, and a busy work schedule. The college environment is exciting and challenging, so I couldn't help but apply for this position. It's not telling you, like, so in answers like that, not telling every little detail. Like, I'm 35 and I graduated in 2004 from Jeffers High School. Then I went into the Army. When I was in the Army, I did this and I did that. It could get lengthy. You want to at least give like some sort of background about yourself without going into too detail. And the big part is what led you to apply for the position that you did. I hope that makes sense. So prepare an answer. It shouldn't be too wordy. Um, just a general brief thing about you, who you are, what your qualifications are, and why you applied for the position. Let's see. The other questions that hurt people, and I'm not, I don't want to make it sound like I'm like a big time CEO or employer where I interview people all the time, but I'm just saying this is what I went through from my time through all my job interviews and the few that I did on people when I was, whether it be for interns or people that were helping out when I was a strength and conditioning coach. The other one is strengths and weaknesses. Those two you need to be prepared for. Big thing here, be honest, be true, but make sure you're not going to screw yourself, all right? So, a weakness, I don't want to list a primary weakness as, especially if I'm trying to be a police officer, is going, I have a hard time thinking on my feet. It's not going to bode well for you, because what do you have to do as a police officer? You have to think on your feet all the time. You don't know what situations are going to happen. So if that's a weakness for you, nobody's going to want to hire you. So any of the like job primarily responsibilities should not be a weakness. And if it is, you need to be able to explain how you've been working to get better at it. And that's how you're going to do with any of your weaknesses. So when you list your weaknesses, whether it be 1, 2, or 3, what are you doing to get better at them? So what's a potential example? So when I was a strength and conditioning coach, a weakness for me was I have a hard time asking for help because I've been so used to doing everything by myself. And you know, I guess been doing everything by myself, so I feel fully responsible for any of the tasks I've been given. But I've been quickly learning to utilize my resources because it helps to have another perspective of view on how to do things. It's really helped me develop professionally. So that might be something for a weakness. Another one is being overly critical of yourself. Some people may say not to use that one because that can be considered cliche, but I use that one. To me, it shows that the person cares. If you're overly critical of yourself, you give a crap about what you're doing, the quality of work that you're outputting. So if you just put something out there and go, I'm fine, whatever it is, it is. But if you look at it and go, well, this could have been better, I should have done this instead. You're trying to professionally develop yourself and improve yourself. So being overly critical to yourself is a good weakness from my standpoint. But as long as you're working to improve it, that's what you should be doing. The other one is a strength. Strengths could be anything and everything. Again, be honest about it. Mine was, and I use this one all the time, was I'm a very adaptable and people-oriented person. I have a strong ability to work as a team or individually without supervision. Straight, simple, and to the point. And for your job interview questions, don't give any more information than you're asked of. So people like to hear you talk. If you get asked a question and you keep on rambling, you might give people a reason to disqualify you or pass on you. So when you're asked a question, give the answer to that question. No more, no less, unless you're asked to do so. All right, so next other one would be researching about the place you're applying to. Now, you shouldn't be applying to a place that you're genuinely not interested in because you're going to be wasting your time and their time. So, apply to some place you're interested in. And if you're applying to that place because you're interested in working there, you should probably do a little bit of research. I don't know how many people I've heard talking about job interviews didn't research the area that you're applying to. So, if you're applying to a county position, you should know about that county. How many people are in it? What type of resources do they got? Or if you're applying to like a city department, how big is the city? What type of events do they host in the summer or throughout the year? So what type of culture do they got? That type of stuff is important because you should know what situation you're getting involved in. If you want to work at the department, you should know why and what you're getting yourself into. You don't want to be blind to anything. And it just shows you care about making a difference in that community, the interpersonal skills. So being prepared in that way makes a big difference. I'm going back to the college environment. So I'm going to use this when I apply to one of the colleges in UP, Michigan Tech University. What do you know about Michigan Tech University? And then I literally had 5 or 6 coaches on this interview, all from different ones, football, basketball, that type of stuff. So, and it's literally just basic stuff. You don't have to go anything crazy when you're researching any of the departments. But here is my answer for that. Michigan Tech was originally a mining school. as that industry was huge in the Upper Peninsula. Michigan Tech offers 140 programs with a with a student to faculty ratio of 13:1, which explains why Michigan Tech is consistently rated a top university. Michigan Tech Athletics has 15 varsity sports with students averaging a cumulative 3.59 GPA, which also shows that students know the importance of education. Short and sweet. You researched a little bit and you're able to apply it. So if you're going to a department, the population, like the city of such and such has 8,300 people, and it's a college town with this college, university, and this primarily population is made up of whether it be Asian American or Asian population, whatever. Just have an understanding of what you're getting yourself into. It is so important. Research, and be prepared, because you don't want to get the question and go, "What do you know about us?" And you just give a blank stare and go, you're in Michigan and you pay $22 an hour, so I'd like to work there. Doesn't sound good. Probably gonna get passed on. And there goes that potential possibility for a career in that spot. So, long story short, again, be prepared, be prepared. Going through any other ones here. Those were the big ones. I just want to make sure, from my experience, I don't leave out a question that either bit me in the rear. Scenarios, especially if you're right now going through a police academy, be prepared for scenarios. How would you deal with something? Again, when I threw the oral board prior to the academy, it was what if somebody stole your favorite garden gnome, or just stuff like that. How would you deal with it? And it doesn't have to be the perfect answer. I mean, you're going based off of the knowledge you have and the experience you got. I'm a recruit with 13 weeks of experience at the police academy. Here's how I'd handle this. And if you get feedback, go, all right, well, I appreciate the feedback. And that's something I'll hopefully be learning more on your FTO program, showing that you're coachable. You could take feedback and advice without being defensive about it, and that you're willing to learn, and especially going to refer it back to learning from that department. It's huge. Other scenarios, and I dealt with this a lot. I'm not going to give specific questions, but tell us about a time. So tell us about a time when you had to think outside out of a box. Tell about a time when you were in charge of something and it didn't go right. So be ready for those type of questions. Again, it's going to take a little bit of time to prepare for any of your job interviews, but at least have some sort of idea. Luckily for myself, again, this is where life experience comes in hand, because a lot of those times you don't have to think about anything. Is tell me a time when you had to think out of the box. All right, my 35 years between the military, my strength and conditioning, I've had to think outside the box every day of the week. It's easy to just, bam, something comes in my head right off the bat. Or when you had to deal with an unwilling person. If you're 18 years old, it might take a little bit of time of going, holy crap, what have I done that's been around that? So it's important to be prepared for that. Don't just wing it. Again, I did that numerous times. I cannot stress that enough. And I missed out on probably many, many good career opportunities because I didn't take the time. But at the same time, I am grateful because all roads led me to where I am right now. And I would not change anything. Again, if I would go back and make myself go through this a lot sooner than I did. I have enjoyed every minute of it, the process of it. I am very excited to get started and we'll hopefully get some other projects going. If anybody has any questions, feedbacks on any of this stuff, please let me know. But that's going to end it for our practical segment. Our fitness segment is going to be on speed training. And first off, I'm going to retouch on this every time I go in the fitness segment, is I do have currently for available on Amazon right now is 2 training strength and conditioning logbooks. One is a 6-month one, and one is a 3-month one. The 3-month one is a police edition. It is printed in full color. The cover of the book is gloss. It's got the thin blue line theme to it, and every training sheet has a thin blue line flag on top of it, and it's printed in color. The sheets are printed out in 3 different categories: power, strength training, and conditioning training, to force you to make your training more geared towards being athletic, hence the concept of train athletic. So all you got to do is just go on Amazon.com and type in train athletic police edition or train athletic workout log, and it should pull up right there. If not, just type in Jeremy Tormel in there. It should pop up anywhere. I got those for sale. If you do get them and you have any feedback on them, let me know. It is easy for me to change things and fix any issues or make things more workable to the user. I ordered quite a few of them coming myself because I want to be able to use them and not have to rely on technology. Or right now, I don't use technology. I just try to remember, and that doesn't go too well, especially when I got all this other stuff going on. All right, so speed training. And I heard this from so many athletes and all that stuff when I was a strength coach and still get it is, how do I get faster? Very simple answer: sprinting. If you need to get faster, you need to sprint. When we talk about specificity of training, there is nothing more specific to speed training than the act of sprinting. Now, sprinting trains your ligaments and your tendons. You're doing rapid force output very quick. So it's also great for injury prevention because of that. It's plyometric in nature. So faster, you want to get faster, you need to sprint and you need to do plyometrics. And again, plyometrics are all of your jumps. I'm going to talk about that here in a second. But speed training can be fun. All right. I think it was, who's the running back for the Panthers? Christian McCaffrey. When he's talking about how he does his training, he's just like, I just sprint. I do as many rounds as I can until I get slower. That's really what it comes down to. If you can do 10 sets of sprinting the same time, or you're getting better, and on an 11th sprint, you start sucking or falling off the wagon, and your workout right there, your sprint training, that's okay. Everybody's going to be different. Not saying you have to do 10 sets. I'm just using that as an example. And your speed training should always be the very first thing that you do, because you cannot get faster if you're already fatigued from anything else. So if I go through, say, a circuit workout, or I do all my strength training and I try to do speed at the end, it's not the best way to do things. It's not going to help you at all. Do your power and your speed training very first thing, which is why those logbooks I made that's the very first block of training that you do. You can combine sprints also with weightlifting, so I could do heavier squats and go outside and go do some sprints. Now, it depends on what you have access to. That might not be feasible, but you could also complement it with jumps, because jumps, again, fall into plyometrics, which are also important for training to help with speed. Plyometrics do have carryover. You're training the tendons and the ligaments for rapid force output, so it's just as beneficial. And sprinting is plyometric. Sprinting is a true plyometric exercise, and not enough people do it. We see this in sports all the time. Is you'd have your athletes who would do all their weightlifting in the summertime, and they would come in to do their preseason training. I'll use soccer as an example. So you got a kid who didn't sprint all summer, and he goes to practice, and he goes to sprint to chase after a ball. Well, what's going to happen? He's going to probably pull or tear something, because his body's not prepared for that. His ligaments and his tendons were not prepared to put all that rapid force output, or to be able to decelerate and handle all that force. So his muscles are strong as shit, but nothing else is, so we can't stop. I hope that makes sense. So that's why it's so important to train those other components, which is why I have it broken into those three. I'll give here an example of how you could do a week of speed training in a little bit. But I want to clarify again on plyometrics. Plyometrics are jumps. I want to clarify between jumps, hops, and bounds. Jumps, I leave the ground and I land the ground on two legs, such as a box jump or just a squat jump. Hops are, I leave the ground and land on the ground on one leg, that being the same leg. So I'm standing on my right leg, my left leg's up in the air. I hop over a hurdle, or I just do a forward hop on my right leg. I leave the ground and land on the ground on my right leg. That is a hop. Bounding, I leave the ground on one leg, land on the ground on the opposite leg, being one leg. So it's just like a sprint. But bounding is a little bit more exaggerated, so I'm either going for height or going for distance. I hope that makes sense. So that just opens up more ways on how you could train, because you can do sticking the landing, explosive type stuff, resisted bounds, resisted sprints, resisted jumps, squat jumps with dumbbells, with a barbell, resisted sled sprints. Any of that type of stuff is going to help make you faster, more explosive, because you're forcing your body to put force in the ground at a high rate and fast. That's why powerlifters are generally not good athletes, because you can lift a lot of weight if you love being in the weight room. You could squat 500 pounds, but if you do it in 3 to 4 seconds, well, that doesn't mean shit if you have to produce all that force in a short amount of time. So if I have to chase after a suspect, I'd rather get it done in the first 25 to 50 yards instead of having to chase after him for a mile. Makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, train slow and you'll be slow. That is so important. And you need to train sprinting to be fast. At this rate, anybody who trains, I give you kudos, because I saw that in the military, and I know it's prevalent in the law enforcement community as well. As you get the people who get out of the academy, they don't exercise, they don't do anything. Again, your community, your department, and your fellow enforcement officers depend on you. You need to be training. And it can be fun when you find your little niche of what you like to do and when you add variety to it. Most people get burnout because they do the same exercises, the same sets, the same reps, same program over and over and over again. Add some med ball, add some sprints, add some good conditioning. Make training fun. You might go, holy shit, this was enjoyable. I can't wait to come back to training tomorrow or 2 days from now. So when we're talking about speed training, I want to stress most speed training is done typically linear, so in a straight line. But don't forget to add change of direction. Change of direction is a little bit more metabolically demanding because you have to decelerate and reaccelerate. So that's an important component too, because remember, when you're chasing after a suspect, it's not just going to be in a straight line. They might be hopping over fences, running down side alleys, stuff like that. So you need to be prepared for that. But again, the faster you are, the quicker you can put that chase to an end, which is what we want to do for our safety, fellow law enforcement officers' safety, and the public safety. So here's an example, and I'm just going to use 6 sets of all this, all right? So say I'm training 3 days out of the week: Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So say Monday, I'm going to make an acceleration type of speed day, all right? So I'm going to do 6 sets of 10-yard sprints. And I want to stress this: anytime you're sprinting, time yourself. I don't care if you're holding a stopwatch, a cell phone. If you have to time yourself, it might be a little bit inaccurate because you have to start and stop it yourself. But you're getting immediate feedback. It's much easier to kind of coast yourself through exercises when you're not timing yourself, and you will get faster by having that objective and immediate feedback to your hands. So time yourself on all your sprints. So Monday acceleration, 6 sets of 10 yards. Again, you don't have to do 6 sets. I'm just using that example. Wednesday, I'm going to do more speed-based. So I'm going to have to increase the distance. So I'm going to go anywhere from 25 to 50 yards. And this is to be straight linear, so there's no change of direction at all. Same thing, 6 sets, time yourself. On Friday, it's going to be my high volume day. So this might be done before your 2 or 3 day off spurt. 6 sets of my change of direction. I'm going to go 20 to 50 yards. So it might be 20 yards down and then 20 yards back. So I have to do a deceleration, stop, change the direction, and reaccelerate, which makes a big difference. So I'm training all 3 of those throughout the week. They're all the same variation, and you just got to make sure you're timing them and keeping notes to that, because that's the only way you're going to get better at it. That is how you get faster. Plyometrics, sprinting being a plyometric exercise. There's going to be no better exercise than actual sprinting. So next to that would be exercises that mimic it: bounding, resisted sprinting, buddy drags, that type of stuff. And then you got your resistance training that helps to supplement that, and your conditioning may help play a role in as far as your ability to recover quicker. I hope that makes sense. If anybody has questions on any of that stuff, again, I can talk about the strength and conditioning portions about things all day long, and I don't want to get too sidetracked and then start going down different rabbit holes and then getting way off topic. I appreciate you guys listening. If if you have any feedback on the show, so if you like it, you don't like it, there's things you wish would be better, or I talked more about this or didn't talk about this, give me a comment or anything like that so I can make improvements instead of going, oh, I think the show is going well because people keep listening. And when people are going, oh my God, this shit sucks, like, I don't know if I don't know. So if there's things that could be better or the format could be better, drop me a comment and I'll make those improvements. Thank you guys for listening. I appreciate the support. I'll be on next week. We only got 4 training days next week. So be sure to do that. And then the graduation week and what the format's going to look afterwards at the academy. I'm quite not sure on how to do that yet, but I'm going to keep on going with this thing. I'm not just going to stop because I want to try to bring on other people or keep on talking about how things are going and what their career's been like. God bless. Have a great rest of the weekend. Again, thank you guys. Thank you for listening to On the Road, a law enforcement journey. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or would like to be on the show, email me at ontheroadlaw@gmail.com. And please like, share this podcast. Thank you.